From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, this is Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Riley Smith. In today's show, Dustin talks about the latest crop weather outlook with USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey. Mark tunes in as Iowa Farm Bureau economist Christopher Pudens discusses USMCA. And I have the latest South America update with Greg McBride of Allendale. Now let's welcome in our hosts, Mark Magnuson and Dustin Huffman.
Well, welcome into another edition of Iowa Ag Matters here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Another warm and muggy day here across the Midwest, and looking for some possible rocky weather, some storms, maybe some hail. And of course, we're in that time of the year, Mark, where that is the last thing we want to hear. We're at that critical point where summer's coming and you don't see the hail as much as it starts to get hotter, but you're also in that place where you're starting to get on that borderline. If you take out the corn with hail, you can't really replant it. And so you have to look at beans. And so that's, we're at a really critical moment right now as this transition happens from spring to summer.
That's true. And, also the other part of it is those plants just aren't as hardy yet. I mean, they are still in that fragile early stage of growth. So any kind of hail can be a real problem for those plants. And we did have a storm roll through Des Moines here at the office earlier this morning, and it was fortunately just some strong rain, and it didn't last very long. Didn't have any hail mixed in here this morning, but that is always a threat at this time of year. And of course, we know that's something that keeps farmers, worried and thinking about things when these storms pop up. But at the same time, they're always welcoming, of course, of that rainfall to get things rolling again. Because as we have mentioned here on the show recently, we had such a wet April. It kind of felt like maybe that was going to be the pattern for the spring. And then things backed off in a big way in May. And then here to start June, it hasn't been necessarily the most plentiful rainfall either. So we will take these rains as they come right now. But again, off to a good start in the crop growing season. We just need to see that continue and hopefully avoid some of those dangerous weather events for those plants that are, again, still in that early stage where they're trying to really take hold and get off to a good start.
Yeah, most definitely. And it's amazing how much a difference a week makes in the crop conditions. I mean, they were looking decent, last week, and the growth stage was right along schedule. But a week later, I'm seeing some fields that I looked at last week, and there's a night and day difference. I mean, the corn has stretched a lot into this heat, which we all know corn loves the heat. It always has. And the humidity, this is right up its alley for getting stuff done. And as we're talking, of course, most people don't know, I'm in Minnesota right now again this week, and we definitely saw some rain shower activity. There's a threat of hail coming here as well tonight, but definitely saw some shower activity. But like I said, northern Iowa, southern Minnesota saw a lot of growth in the last 7 days or so, and it's good to see. Farmers are definitely happy to see that. And we're going to hear from Brad Rippey coming up a little later on in the program. As Riley said earlier, the USDA outlook now is out basically to round out the spring forecast and what he's expecting to see across the country, especially in the Corn Belt coming up for those first few days of the summer as well, Mark.
Yes, and that is something that is always interesting to follow along, is those predictive models for later in the season, later in the year, and trying to find out exactly what's going to happen. And as we know, El Nino is going to play a big part in that this year. And Dustin, also, I'm watching on the grain side of the ag marketplace, some of these flash sales we have seen recently still haven't been those great big deals, those big sales that we've been looking for and waiting for it to come along. But as we see this break in the price, as the prices come down here recently, it makes sense why we start to see some more flash sales. And also think about now the upcoming schedule for reports. We have the WASDE report this week, and then we have at the end of the month, of course, is the big report that everyone has circled with a red pen. That is the big report at the end of June, where we get a bigger picture of everything that's gone on so far this season and kind of sets us up for the rest of the year.
Yeah, we get those final numbers for the planting reports and what acres were planted. Of course, things can change with weather, as we've been talking about, but yeah, those numbers are going to be big market movers. And of course, people are looking for Chinese sales, and you have to also remember that, yes, while there is an agreement that can't be enforced at the moment, we're also in a time period where they traditionally don't buy a lot from us, and we should be looking at what are they doing for new crop sales when that time comes around. They're going to be watching the weather to see how plentiful that will be as well. Let's go ahead, and Mark, you're talking with Jim McCormick of agmarket.net here today as we start with the grains.
Joined today by Jim McCormick of agmarket.net. Jim, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
Hey, good morning, Mark. We are seeing a little bit of a dead cat bounce today. Kind of nice to see a little bit of green in the screen. We got corn up 1 to 2 cents. We've got beans leading the way up, 11 up on the July beans as we talk. New crop beans up 7 3/4 cents. Wheat's up 5 cents across Kansas City and Chicago wheat. The beans, we saw the 8th lower close yesterday in a row, and we've been lower 15 out of 18 days in the beans. So a little bit of a maybe oversold bounce in the beans leading us up today.
And speaking to those lower prices that we've seen here in recent days, we've also seen some flash sales, and it's probably very well related. What have you made of those flash sales and where they could possibly be heading?
Well, I think it's a good sign that you're seeing it. It shows that the market is engaged. They're not the big sales that we're looking for, let's be honest. You have the China gorilla hanging over the market. Back in the fall, China said they'd buy 12 million metric tons of old crop and 25 million metric tons of new crop. Earlier this spring, it was reiterated China was going to buy 25 million metric tons of new crop beans. We have really yet to see China step up and come in and buy aggressively on these new crop beans. We're hoping to see it. There was also talk earlier in the negotiations this spring that maybe China would come in and buy some other ag products. We have yet to see that come to fruition, but like I said, after this big break, we are a little bit on a fire sale. So we've seen a little bit of small purchases coming in. Hopefully we can see those big purchases coming in. We do have that June WASDE report that comes out tomorrow, so maybe they're going to hold off and see how that plays out. Traditionally, Mark, that June WASDE is not a game changer. The big game changer that really kind of gets the market activity moving hard one way or another tends to be the quarterly grain stock and the acreage number that is released on June 30th.
And we're not too far away from that report, so certainly we will be locked into that. Also, Jim, I wanted to ask you, right now with the weather in the Corn Belt and the forecast, is that playing an effect on the ag marketplace?
I would say right now, the viewpoint in general looks relatively benign for the weather. I was looking at the QPF this morning and then looking at the GFS Euro model the next 5 to 7 days. And then you go out, for 2 weeks like these longer range maps do. And the fact of the matter is there is no major dome of doom setting in or anything like that. It looks like a relatively active pattern and a lot of moisture. There are some areas of the country, Mark, that are getting too much rain. But the reality is it's very hard to get the market to be worked up on too much rain in the month of June.
ACM and CMA award winner, Hardy.
That's my favorite country song.
Live in concert.
I woke up on the wrong side of the truck bed this morning.
August 13th, 8 p.m., Iowa State Fair Grandstand.
You got it good, old boy.
With special guest McCoy Moore. Hardy Live. Reserve tickets on sale now through iowastatefair.org. Hardy 2026.
You're listening to Iowa Ag Matters, and as we mentioned earlier in the show, it is time now for Dustin's conversation with Brad Rippey, USDA meteorologist, and a look at the forecast. Here's Dustin with more.
While trade developments and geopolitical tensions continue to generate headlines and keep the attention of the grain markets, weather remains the single biggest variable for crop production and one of the key drivers of market direction this time of year. The latest forecast suggests much of the Corn Belt could continue benefiting from a favorable combination of warmth and moisture through the middle of the month into the beginning of the summer season. USDA Chief Meteorologist Brad Rippey says an active weather pattern is expected to remain in place across much of the country.
Taking a look at the National Weather Service 8 to 14-day outlook takes us right into mid-June. This covers the period from June 9th through the 15th. It does look like the entire country is going to see above normal temperatures, except for South Texas, where we expect to see near normal temperatures. Greatest likelihood of above normal temperatures will be across the western and northern United States. In terms of precipitation, it does look like we'll continue to see a number of active disturbances across the country as we head through the remainder of the first half of June. We are expecting near or above normal precipitation nationwide, except in parts of Northern California and the northern Great Basin. So warm and showery is the word of the day as we head through the remainder of the first half of June. Getting into who is going to get the most significant moisture, we are looking at a broad area encompassing the eastern plains, the Midwest, In interior sections of the southeast, looking to get the heaviest rainfall, we could easily see 2 to 4 inches, locally higher totals in some of those big thunderstorms, and that would stretch from places like the eastern Dakotas, southward into Oklahoma, all the way eastward to the Appalachians. Those are the areas that could see those 2 to 4 inch rainfall totals. Needless to say, that is going to cause some fieldwork delays, but on the beneficial side, that will keep a lot of our major summer crops, including corn and soybeans, well watered as we head into mid-June. So pretty optimistic outlook for the Midwestern cropping areas, as well as some of the eastern plains where they're not trying to harvest winter wheat at this point in the season.
But not every region is expected to receive the same benefits from this pattern. Rippey says some areas will miss out on the heaviest rainfall, while others will continue to battle heat and dryness.
Now, who's going to miss out on all this bounty? Well, if you're in the deep south, at least initially, it looks like a lot of that moisture will stay a little further to the north. So the closer you get to the Gulf Coast, those showers will happen, but they'll be much more scattered and lighter. Same is true along the Atlantic seaboard. The closer you get to the Atlantic coast, the showers will be less widespread, less efficient at producing rainfall. So some of the drought-stricken areas along the East Coast may stay on the dry side. And then finally, as you move west of the Rockies, it does look pretty quiet, and we are expecting mostly dry conditions across places like California, the Great Basin, areas of the Northwest, east of the Cascades, especially across eastern Oregon, and then large sections of the Southwest also mostly dry during the next 5 to 7 days. Not extreme heat, not devastating heat by any stretch, but certainly some areas of the country will be quite hot. The desert Southwest, it is not unusual to see triple-digit heat in the afternoons this time of year in advance of the monsoon, which is still almost a month away. Temperatures at or above 100 degrees across portions of the southern high plains. So places like West Texas, we could see temperatures in the 100 to 105 degree range for the next couple of days until we finally get a little bit of a break, some cooler air working its way in from the north and west. And unfortunately, some of the southern high plains areas and the Atlantic coast areas will also miss out on most of the rainfall. So that could lead to some increasing stress on pastures and summer crops.
While the rains and warm weather could delay some field work in the Midwest, it is allowing those late planted acres to catch up. The overall forecast continues to support crop development across much of the Corn Belt as the growing season moves deeper into June and into the first days of summer. For Iowa Ag Matters, I'm Dustin Huffman.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you. It's time now for a check of the basis prices here on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Riley Smith. Taking a look at the latest cash corn and soybean prices from across the state, with both trading on the July contract. ADM in Burlington, corn 18 under at 405, beans 28 under at 1093. Cargill and Eddyville, corn 10 under at 413. New Cooperative in Algona, corn 31 under at 392, beans 40 under at 1081. Ag State in Sheldon, corn 16 under at 407, beans 45 under at 1076. Ag State in Alta, corn 31 under at 392, beans 40 under at 1081. Cargill and Cedar Rapids, corn 7 under at 416, beans even with the market price at 1121. 5-Star Cooperative in Nashua, corn 30 under at 393, beans 35 under at 1086. Linkway Energy in Nevada, corn 17 under at 406. ADM in Des Moines, beans 10 under at 1111. New Cooperative in Red Oak, corn 24 under at 399, beans 40 under at 1081. Mid-Iowa Cooperative in Green Mountain, corn 40 under at 383, beans 70 under at 1051. New Cooperative in Chariton, corn 24 under at 399, beans 40 under at 1081. Walk-On Feed Ranch, corn 49 under at 374, beans 62 under at 1059. New Cooperative in Glidden, corn 29 under at 394, beans 35 under at 1086. Innovative Ag Services in Farley, corn 40 under at 383, beans 55 under at 1066. In Cargill and Muscatine, corn 22 under at 401, beans 25 under at 1096. Cash corn and soybean prices are subject to change without notice, so make sure to call in to your local elevator for the latest price movements. You can find all of our market conversations under the Market tab at iowaagnet.com. For Basis Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, I'm Riley Smith reporting.
In rural Iowa, you need reliable information. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network brings you ag-specific content like market trends, weather outlooks, and policy updates that matter to your operation, while your local station brings you community news and consistent updates on what is happening in your area. It's a partnership built for the challenges of rural life. Your farm, your local station, and your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters. Find us online at iowaagnet.com.
Yesterday on Iowa Ag Matters, we heard from Iowa Secretary of Agriculture Mike Nag at the recent USMCA roundtable at World Pork Expo. Now today it is time to hear from Christopher Pudens, the economist with the Iowa Farm Bureau. Here's Chris Pudens with more.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. Like Bob said, I'm Christopher Pudens. I'm the economist at Iowa Farm Bureau. Just submitted the family's application for the Century Farm Award this summer, so I'm hoping that goes through. I'm pretty sure it will. But very excited to be speaking with you about something that is near and dear to my heart. The foundation of this discussion about USMCA and ag trade starts with the productivity of Iowa's agricultural economy. Secretary Nag hit on that very well. God gifted the state of Iowa with large swaths of some of the most productive soil in the entire world. And combined with our technology, infrastructure, some good hard work and determination, those are the resources that allow Iowa agriculture to be the agricultural production powerhouse that we are. We're first in pork production nationally, second in soybeans, first in hog inventories. That's why we're all here today, right? Fourth in cattle on feed, and those are just the big ones, right? We're also first in egg production, seventh for turkeys, and just cracked the top 10 for dairy for folks who are keeping track of that one. So Iowa is an absolute agricultural production powerhouse. And because Iowa agriculture is so productive, we need a lot of demand for the products that we produce. And the industry over the past 3 or 4 decades especially has put a lot of work into developing international markets abroad. USMEF actually is celebrating their 50th anniversary this fall out in California with a big celebration. But like Secretary Nag said, Iowa ranks second overall among all states. $13.7 billion in ag exports coming out of the state of Iowa in 2024. It's absolutely a huge number, very important for bottom lines of farmers out there in the state. All these exports serve as a major demand center, like I mentioned, for Iowa's key commodities, and they really do add dollars at the farm gate. So, for example, turning to the subject of today's panel, USMCA, Iowa's 2 most important trading partners are Canada and Mexico, far and away. In Mexico, in 2025, Mexico was the number 1 destination for U.S. corn and pork, and number 2 for soybeans, and number 3 for beef. Huge market for Iowa agriculture. In 2025, we had record volumes of pork exported to Mexico, despite everything that went on with trade in 2025. And according to USMEF, that accounted for $22 a head slaughtered here in the United States. And that's just a very, very big number. So if we didn't have that market, that's $22 that our farmers are missing out on. It's also a very important market for bone-in hams and variety meats. I think we export nearly half the hams that we produce here in this country, somewhere in the 40s, and roughly 40% of those go to Mexico. So they're an irreplaceable trading partner in some key ways. But it's a two-way street. We also import important things for our ag economy from Mexico. We typically, and that's an important word these days, we typically import 1.2 million head of feeder cattle every year from Mexico. Right now, that market is closed because of new World Screwworm concerns, but as soon as those things get resolved, we'll look forward to that flow of feeder cattle again. Jumping north to Canada, in 2025, Canada ranked 4th in both pork and beef exports here. And in terms of imports, we also import 750,000 head of cattle a year from Canada, most of which are immediately slaughtered as opposed to being feeder cattle. So maintaining a strong USMCA is absolutely critical to farm profitability in the Midwest for a variety of ways. These are just, the tip of the iceberg that I mentioned here. And these trade relationships aren't optional for U.S. agriculture. I think that perhaps is a big takeaway. I don't want to steal too much of Julie's thunder, but we simply don't have enough potash production here in the United States to meet all our needs as an agricultural industry. And I know you folks all love pork, and you're going to go home tonight and buy a whole bunch of pork, right? Because you're supporting the pork industry here. But you can only eat so much sandwich meat, right? And there are a lot of folks in Mexico who love our bone-in hams. Very, very strong demand for that type of product south of the border. So as we seek ways to get through this downturn in the U.S. ag economy, maintaining and even expanding our trade relationships with both Mexico and Canada as part of this USMCA review are absolutely essential. Thank you.
Rod Stewart.
When I see you tonight,
A special evening with the icon.
on a downtown train,
A night of hit after hit after hit with special guest Richard Marks. Friday, August 14th, Iowa State Fair Grandstand. Reserve tickets on sale now through iowastatefair.org. Don't miss an electrifying event. Friday, August 14th. Rod Stewart, live.
Well, Dustin, as we mentioned earlier today, you are in Minnesota today for a visit up to your home state. And on the way there, I was wondering, you recently drove to Minnesota and back to Iowa, and that was a few weeks ago or a couple weeks ago, and had a chance to see those crops, do a little highway scouting. I was going to ask you, what does the emergence look like? Did it look like everybody got their crops in at a pretty similar time, or were there gaps because of some of that April weather that we had?
Well, I want to start off with, I know time flies when you're having fun, but it was only last week that I was up here, Mark. But there's definitely, you could see emergence. You could see definitely growth differences. And like I said last week when I was up here, you could tell southern Minnesota was able to get in before northern Iowa was. And we talked about that with the wet April. Minnesota did not have that. It kind of flip-flopped where they got rain. Then in May, after they planted, we kind of got pre-saturated, and then we're able to get our crops in after. But now you can tell. But now things are starting to catch up even more this week. You can see that northern Iowa has definitely made some growth, but Minnesota has too. So, it's going to be a little time before everything balances out, but everything always tends to balance out as it should. And Minnesota just got a head start on Iowa at the point. But, that's where we're at right now. The crops look good. Things that were corn plants that were maybe a little bit better than ankle high just a couple of days ago are now getting closer to mid-calf high. So, it's definitely seeing some progress. We'll have more Iowa Ag Matters coming up in a moment.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
This is the Midday Market Update on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson, joined today by Taylor Ingham of agmarket.net for our Midday Market discussion. Taylor, what's happening with the trade in the grains here on Wednesday?
All in the green so far. Corn nearby is up about a penny. Deese corn up about 2 3/4, and soybeans double digits. Wheat also up by about 5 to 6 cents.
And Taylor, as you look at the price action here today, is this just a little bit of a bounce back after so many negative days in a row stacked together?
Yeah, 2 cents never felt so good after the negative trade last week. And I think higher energy prices are also supporting grains today.
What other news stories are you watching this week as far as market movers and things we should be paying attention to on the grain side?
Right now, Trump's giving a press conference on more action in Iran, so I think that's got the energy traders nervous. And I think we'll see some big rains throughout the Midwest. That is probably going to be good rain for some and too much for others.
And over on the livestock side of the trade, what's happening with the trade for cattle and hogs today?
Choppy trade in cattle. Feeders are holding a pretty good range, so I think we've digested a lot of the screwworm news, at least in the short term, and so looking to find some support for feeder cattle, and cash trade and fat cattle seems like it's going to be steady to higher this week. Good futures action, and then hogs are also up so far this session, and so good demand on the protein complex, and the CPI numbers that we saw this morning do reflect some of those higher cost proteins and energy prices this time or from last month.
And Taylor, I think it's been interesting, kind of the public reaction to the or to the screwworm stories, as I initially thought it would be much more negative than it was. And since then, we've had more and more cases that have been confirmed. At a certain point, do those just become a little bit of background noise?
That's our hope. I think that we're definitely hopeful that the media is able to portray this as a transient problem that we can manage and deal with the technology and the management practices that we have. So we're hopeful that this doesn't shake any consumer confidence, and so far it doesn't seem like it will.
That was Taylor Engum with agmarket.net. We will have a check of the numbers next.
Burwell Livestock Market, Burwell, Nebraska, Friday, June 12th will be a special cattle auction. Be starting at 11:30 on a regular auction. Be selling fall calves, feeders, bred cows, fall bred cows, heifer pairs, cow-calf pairs. That's at the Burwell Livestock Market in Burwell, Nebraska, Friday, June 12th, special cattle auction at 11:30 on a regular auction. You can view our complete listings at burwelllivestock.com. You can view and bid online at DV Auction or Cattle USA, or give us a call here at the auction market.
July corn up 3/4 cent at $4.20 1/4. July soybeans up 13 1/2 at $11.27 1/4. July soybean meal up $2.40 at $3.0350. July soybean oil up 61 cents at $75.52. On the Merc, June live cattle at $249.83, up $1.80. August feeder cattle at $353.93, down 23 cents. July lean hogs up $1 at $97.15. July pork cutout unchanged at $116.03. Class 3 milk down 6 cents at $16.01. That was a check of the midday markets on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson.
Well, back into the marketplace we go here on Iowa Ag Matters on this Wednesday and find out what's happening with the cattle and hogs. Boy, cattle has been volatile since the detections of New World Screwworm. Jim McCormick of agmarket.net rejoining the conversation now with Mark Magnuson.
What's happening on the livestock side of the trade today?
We are seeing a little bit of a bounce in these June cattle today. We got them up $1.42 on the June cattle. We've got them back above the 10-day, and also the 50-day moving average. We did get a CPI number that honestly was red hot on the inflationary aspect of it. So is that bringing a little bit of buying in on the inflation play? We also have Father's Day weekend coming up, maybe providing a little bit of support. And one kind of a weird twist. Obviously, you've known, I'm not sure you've talked about it, you got the screwworm issue that is showing up in the United States. Out of all countries that are banning the importation of cattle from Texas, it is Mexico due to screwworm, which is really kind of interesting because we bring in so much cattle in from Mexico, and that's pretty much where the screwworm originally migrated from Mexico into the U.S. So kind of an interesting twist in that matter.
Jim, I don't know about you, but at least for my perspective, I was pleasantly surprised by the public reaction to the screwworm story, because typically when something like that happens and we see those scary headlines, for people that haven't been following it, there tends to be kind of a big negative reaction. We didn't necessarily see that so much. What did you make of the public's reaction to the screwworm stories?
I would agree. I mean, you never know how they're going to trade the headline. We saw a lot of volatility last week when it came out and rallied and came back. But in general, even though you're getting some pretty scary headlines out there on the, on the wire services, the public has kind of taken it in stride. And it just shows you the demand for our beef is still very, very strong. And that's a very good sign for the American producers of beef.
What's the best way for our listeners to get in touch for more marketing information?
You can reach me directly at 815-665-0461. Reach any of the Ag Market team members at 844-424-6758.
Jim McCormick, agmarket.net. Head to agmarket.net for all of the marketing information and resources. Thanks so much for the time. Always appreciate it, and have a great day.
Thanks for having me on.
ACM and CMA award winner, Hardy.
That's my favorite country song.
Live in concert.
I woke up on the wrong side of the truck bed this morning.
August 13th, 8 p.m., Iowa State Fair Grandstand.
You got it good, old boy.
With special guest McCoy Moore. Hardy Live. Reserve tickets on sale now through iowastatefair.org. Hardy 2026.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
Well, back on Iowa Ag Matters, and it's time to find out what's going on south of the equator in Brazil and Argentina. As we get the weekly South America update, Greg McBride of Allendale joining Riley Smith for that update.
And first off, Greg, what are we seeing in the latest weather patterns for Brazil and Argentina?
1 to 5 day short forecast shows some improvement in the rains for Brazil. It's still not widespread coverage, but it is to the southern areas and more so to the inner coast of things here. So the inner border has some good rains, but overall it's improving some of the drier conditions we've seen over the last couple of months. 6 to 10 day forecast does dry things out again as it goes over to the eastern coast. There is some rain, but the rest of the country is still back to the drier side. And Argentina across both of those forecasts is more on the drier side than anything at this point.
And then I know for the crop progress in Brazil, they're in between harvest periods right now, but down in Argentina, how is harvest progress going?
So Argentina is harvesting soybeans. They are almost completed on that harvest, sitting at 96%. So that would put them ahead of the 5-year average, which is 93, and well ahead of last year at 91. Looking out to their corn harvest, they are about halfway, 53%. Again, ahead of the 5-year average, ahead of last year. Still, with some of those drier conditions have been moving along. They've gotten a few rains to kind of keep things from getting too dry. So they continue to move right along. It doesn't look like there's any major concerns about either harvest at this point.
And we're also looking ahead to the WASDE report, which will come out this week. Any changes that we are expecting to see in the South American crop numbers?
Surprisingly, no. We've talked about this for a few weeks and months with that dryness in Brazil hitting right about the same time as pollination period for corn, for that second crop corn. No one's really hitting the sell button or the panic button when it comes to production on corn. Right now, we're looking at about 135 to 136 million metric tons. USDA was at 135 on the last report, so nobody's cutting that off. We're still stationary at about a little bit higher on the Argentine crop, putting that up to about 61 million metric tons, whereas the May WASDE report showed up at 59. Otherwise, no changes to the soybeans for Argentina or Brazil at this point.
And then taking a look at the kind of price levels between the U.S. and South America, are things pretty favorable for both corn and soybeans here in the U.S. right now?
So it's a little bit of it's been the same situation for quite a while when it comes to soybeans. We have Brazil has a pretty good discount for soybeans, anywhere from $14 in deferred months out to the nearby months being at $30 to $40 discount. On the corn, it's a little bit better. That's why we continue to see those better sales. Now, it's anywhere from a $10 to $30 per ton price advantage for Brazil, but we continue to keep things fairly tight and continue to see decent sales out of corn. We would look for Beans to maybe, if they were going to make an adjustment on this report, it would be to lower exports by maybe 5 to 15 million bushels. If they were going to do anything with corn, it would be to raise it by anywhere from 50 to 100 million bushels. So this has been kind of the case that we've been talking about for about the last year to 2 years in respect to both corn and beans. Very good corn exports, weaker bean exports.
All right, Greg, lots of great information today. For anybody who would like to get in touch for more marketing information from Allendale, how can they do that?
Give us a call at 800-2-MARKET. That's 800-262-7538.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
Thanks for joining us for today's edition of Iowa Ag Matters. Thanks to Riley. Thanks to Dustin as well. I'm Mark Magnuson. You can find the full podcast episodes of the show on our website and also our daily news stories. Just head to iowaagnet.com and you'll find everything right there. Join us again tomorrow for more here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.